What's cracking, everybody? In this video, I want to tell you my 3 secrets. Not really secrets, they're just 3 things that I've learned throughout the past years, but I only just realized what I did wrong with filmmaking. And that's it. Just gonna do just that and a bit of extra. So lately, I've been joining a production company and doing work experience there. And I was on my first shoot about a week ago, the first ever professional video shoot I've been on. And I've been editing a lot of videos before that, but to see a cameraman or a camera operator in person and to see like what he does and what he didn't do made me realize a couple of things and other things that I kind of just noticed recently. And those things are the motion of the camera, the exposure, and stressing a scene. That's what I call it, at least. So we're gonna jump into the first one, which is gonna be exposure. So I've always thought that you are getting the right exposure when your exposure meter is in the middle. So you can either have a high exposure or a low exposure, I think, which is like a bright image or a dark image. And in the middle is pretty much the perfect exposure. You have a bit of both, a bit of maybe blown out highlights and some crushed dark bits, but you know, I always thought you could just get rid of that in post, but I always had this image which was in the middle. And lately I kind of found out that that's not really the right thing to do, at least in my perception. And so I kind of like this dark, moody look now. It might just be a, you know, transforming or evolving me as a filmmaker, which likes different stuff, but it could be just that you might want to try that yourself and see what you find more interesting. Because I found out that most images looked a lot better when I had a lower exposure. What I mean by that is I looked through footage I took in France and videos, and sometimes I had the exposure was too low, but the image looked really good, and then I bumped the exposure up because I thought the light meter had to be in the middle. Sometimes that was a lot worse than the image before. And another thing I realized about the exposure, when it's darker, you're exposing for the highlights. That might be a rule to be thinking of in general, to expose for the highlights when you don't really have a talent or object that has to be very well lit. So when you have like a tree in front, you don't really have to see the tree well lit. It might be even better to have your background on the right exposure. So you want to be exposing for the highlights and not the thing that might be the subject in your framing. So that's pretty much what I mean by that. Like, expose for the highlights and see if that makes a difference, because I'm gonna try that one now. And it might be that my videos are all gonna be very moody and dark. Just something that I realized that I really like in other videos, and I always thought, how do they do that? And now I think it might be that sometimes you have to not only be in the middle, but either go on the very top or the low end of your light meter. The light meter is just as a reference, what I always used, and sometimes you just, you know, you just go with the flow. You just see what looks best for you. So anyways, the second one is motion. So I always thought, because you shoot video, you have to have motion in your video, which I thought is always gonna be camera movement. So even the slightest camera movement I thought would be great, or better than no movement, because I thought you shoot video, you're not gonna shoot still images, so you better have movement in there. But you know, like those videos of France, which are gonna be up on this channel very soon, because I'm just working on them right now. Sometimes I had this still frame and these waves coming in from the ocean, and it looked like so cool, but then I wanted to move the camera back and forth because I wanted to get this side moving camera motion, and it just wrecked the whole image pretty much. It just did. I ended up just choosing the one that was just a still frame and the waves rolling in, and it was just a very tiny bit of the clip, but I thought it looked a lot better than the ones I was stressing to have motion in it. At least camera motion. So weird that I didn't see that before. Sometimes you just want to have a still shot and you just have the wind rolling in, and you just want to, I don't know, have the people moving, because something is always moving. If it's not your shaking hand, it will be something else. And yeah, maybe a locked off shot here and there is a great thing to have, and not everything on a stabilizer or like run and gun and going sideways. Anyways, the third takeaway that I did get from my, I don't know, 3 years of filmmaking by now. I think it was more, but 4 years of filmmaking and 2 effective years maybe, I don't know. But the third takeaway that I did just realized, as well as the others, is stressing a scene. And as well, I can refer to footage I have from France that I've just been to the last summer. When I was looking through the footage, I found this video where my car was driving past down this very small road, and I was just in a corner, and I knew I couldn't really move a lot with the camera, and so I wanted to get the most out of the shot because it was just a beautiful small village, and I was just seeing the car coming towards me, and I zoomed in very tight to get the first motion to have a little bit of, you know, coming towards me on the tight zoom, and then I wanted to have this wide angle view. Then I zoomed out, the car was going straight past me, and then I zoomed back in and all that, and even tried to run after it. And that was just too much for the one scene. I should have just, I don't know, maybe had 2 things in mind that I wanted to do. Maybe just like a zoom shot, and when it comes out of focus or out of the frame, I, you know, do a step, reframe, and do like a wide angle shot when it takes off again. Then I have 2 good shots instead of 4 not so great shots. So stressing a scene is not really the best you could do, which I'm kind of referring to with, yeah, that video that I found in my videos from France. All the videos from France will be up on this channel. Hopefully very soon. I'm doing like a road trip kind of video with my old bus. These were the 3 takeaways that I did have from 2 years of filmmaking. And they're very handy, in my opinion. I didn't know that. I've never heard anyone talk about it, because for some it might be just logical, and they never thought of doing it any different. But I just always, I don't know, I read this book about exposure within photography and thought, you know, I could just fix it in post, but it doesn't really work like that. With my camera, you don't have a huge amount of dynamic range, so you can't really get all the highlights and all the blacks at the same time. You have to shoot for either the highlights or the blacks or the darker parts in the image, and then blow out the highlights or crush the blacks. And that's maybe how you get like a more... Junge, schmeiß dir mal deinen Kopf an. I'm gonna Google, damn it. And that's maybe how you could get a more significant image, a more powerful image, you know, like, you know what I mean? This extra bit of grain to the salt to the grain, I don't know. I'm gonna do that more often. Yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna shoot the next video, but you'll definitely see it. There'll be lots more darker scenes, or if they won't be dark, they might be bright, but I'm not gonna go with the middle anymore. I'm gonna try with the top or the low end. And I hope that all makes sense to you. If it doesn't, you should tell me why it does not make sense, but I think it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I will leave you with this beautiful drone footage from my simulator, because I figured out how to bring it back on track, and I'm back into training, and here is what I can do. Until the next video. Bye!